but I'd like to move on to the second presentation of today's program, which is shared between Gabriel Dallago and Stefan. So I'd like to call them up for the presentation as well.
Hello, can you?
Yes, you can hear Gabriel. Yeah.
Yes, all right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see my presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. So hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Dallago. I'm an assistant professor here in the Animal Science Department of the University of Manitoba. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how can we use precision livestock technology to improve the efficiency and enhance the sustainability of the livestock industry. I'd like to start by asking a quick question. So, well, not much a question, more like a thought. Do we actually need precision technology? What is the role that precision technology would play in livestock? We have a lot of tools already. Do we actually need something else? My answer to that question would be yes, and then I'll try to get to that answer throughout this presentation. So for us to get to that point, we need to understand that the livestock it's facing some challenges, and we have challenges inside the gate, and we have challenges outside the gate. So inside the gate, we have a few things that are happening, and then that I would like to bring to point out. One of them is the change in the herd characteristics. So the herd sizes are increasing. So what we're seeing today in Canada and globally is that the number of animals per farm are increasing at the same pace where the number of farms are decreasing. So farmers are becoming bigger. Not only farmers are becoming bigger, it's been harder to find labor to work on those farmers. So labor shortage has been an issue in the livestock industry and always has been making the news quite often lately. Another issue, and now going towards outside the gate of a farm, there's something that I could not talk about, is the increasing demand for animal source food. So the estimations that we have is that the demand for animal source food or animal source protein is expected to increase, and it would increase differently in different parts of the world. And it's mostly due to growth in population and improving the economy especially of middle to low income countries. But overall, we are to expect a 21% increase by 2050 compared to the numbers that we have for 2020. Not only there is a growing demand for animal source food, there's also a growing level of concerns among consumers regarding the sustainability of livestock farming. So one of those issues is regarding the social sustainability and in the form of animal health and animal welfare. So one of the latest poll that was done in Europe has found that about 91% of the Europeans believe that the welfare, it's important to protect the welfare of farmed animals in their country. Not only that, about 84% of them believe that it should be better protected than already is. So that highlights the importance played by put on animal welfare and health by consumers. There's also environmental concerns, and mostly what we hear the most is about greenhouse gas emissions. So livestock animals, they tend to receive a lot of heat regarding the amount of greenhouse gas emitted, and that tends to go particularly stronger for ruminant animals. It goes beef and cattle and dairy cattle. The good thing is that there are ways to address those challenges. So it's not just the cow, it's the how. One of the latest report released by the FAO in last year has shown evaluated different strategies to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, and it was reported that about 55% of reduction would be possible only if we focus on management-related practices. And all of those practices, the management-related practices that they evaluated, you can see in this plot here that increasing production or efficiency or increasing productivity is one of the factors that have the highest impact on reducing the greenhouse gas emission. The thing is, the livestock industry has already come a long way in increasing production efficiency. In Canada, for example, an average Holstein cow in 1961 would produce about 2,700 kilograms of milk per year. In 2018, that same average Holstein cow is expected to produce close to 10,000 kilograms of milk per year. So that's about 252% increase in a relatively short period of time. And that's not something that's happening in Canada only. That's a trend that we're seeing globally. In countries that produce a lot of milk, we've seen an increase in efficiency. Of course, some countries increased, there was a higher percent of increase than others, but overall, there's been an increase throughout. And that's not only limited to dairy. So we can see that for pretty much all of the livestock in species, we have seen an increase in performance that goes anywhere between 27% to 100%. As a consequence of increasing that production efficiency, we see a reflect on the greenhouse gas emitted per unit of animal products. So in here, I'm showing the amount of CO2 equivalent of greenhouse gas emitted per kilogram of animal source product. And you can see that pretty much all of those livestock species that I've shown here, they have a significant reduction in the amount of greenhouse gas produced. But we don't stop here. We still produce greenhouse gas is still produced within the livestock industry, and there are ambitious targeted for reducing the greenhouse gas emission. So that's where precision livestock farming or artificial intelligence comes to play a role in livestock farming. So the idea is that precision livestock tools or technologies can use to continuously monitor the animals on an individual scale to provide information that it's useful for management decisions. So it's basically technology and data-driven tools. It's another set of tools to help farmers or to support farmers in making their management decisions. So that has consequences in addressing the issues that I presented inside the gate. So to provide help in managing larger herds with no increased need of labor, and also outside the gate to improve the efficiency and reduce the greenhouse gas emission, and at the same time improve animal health and animal welfare. So what is an AI or a precision livestock farming tool made of? It has a couple of components. So if you boil it down to the bare bones, we get the one component is data. The second component is analyzing that data that's being generated or that's being used. And that analytical step would give support for management decision. When it comes to data, data comes in as many different shapes and flavors as you can imagine. So we have the more standard, probably well-known type of data, which is a tabular data, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet where we have columns and rows, and those get populated with the information that we have. But we also have many other sources of data that are very rich. So we have sounds as a source of data. So animals. So animals vocalize, and as they're vocalized, that's a source of information that we can use. So it's a sort of data. Me speaking here, we are using sound, so it is generating data. So that's a sort of data from livestock too. And we also have videos and images that are also another wealth and rich source of data that we can gather, we can collect. Once we have all of that data, we need to analyze that data. And that's where we have seen a huge amount of advances recently. We use models. Models by default, they are all wrong. None of them are 100% correct. But the idea is that models can be useful to support our management decisions. The advance that we've seen in the past, mostly driven by cheaper computing resources and development of advanced and more complex model, has led to us being able to build models that are not that simple anymore. We have much more complex models that can represent the reality to a better degree of precision. Those models then should be able to handle the different data sources and the different data types that we have. So we have images, videos, sounds, and tabular data. Those models should be able to handle that. One particular category of model that is very powerful and able to handle those type of data is what we call machine learning. So machine learning models, they are data-driven models. They learn from the data. They make no assumptions regarding your data, regarding data shape, data format, makes no assumption on that. So they're able to ingest the data, but the payoff of that is that they're very data hungry. They need a lot of data to learn, and they learn by making mistakes, and they do make a lot of mistakes in learning throughout the process. So we need not only a lot of data, we also need data of good quality to be able to train those models. One category of machine learning models are the artificial neural networks. The beauty of artificial neural networks, on top of being very flexible and very powerful, they come in many different shapes and flavors to match with the different shapes and flavors that we have in our data. So for each type of data, we have artificial neural networks that are better designed to handle that type of data and make what we need, which are the predictions. So using the predictions from those models, that's when we actually harness their power to make management decisions. We can train models to predict any single event that we are interested on. And using those predictions, we can make management decisions. Here, I have an example when we can predict the milk yield of lactating dairy cows at the beginning of their lactation and use that as a decision, as a outcome to make a management decision. So now that I covered the most theoretical and aspect of it, I'm gonna pass the floor to Stefan, who is gonna cover what we're seeing today on the farm. It's with you, Stefan.
Thank you, Gabriel. So I will touch on 4 technologies that we are currently using on dairy farms, speaking specifically about milk intervals, individual cow feeding, breeding timing, and sire selection, and cow health. And they're 4 kind of broad categories, but these are currently in play on many dairy farms in Manitoba and across Canada. I'll talk a little bit about future tech, where I think the industry is going and needs to go, and then touch on future data sharing. So I'll start off with this slide talking about the data that we're currently getting. Gabriel says learning large AIs need a lot of data. Well, we have data. So today, over half of the cows in Manitoba are already milked by robots. Robots have a lot of sensors, and the brand that I'm using, we're collecting about 120 different data values from every cow every day. Multiply that across the 1.5 million potential dairy cows in Canada, and you can start to see the data set is getting very, very large. So every day we're measuring feed intake of the cows. There's a scale under the robot that weighs the cow every day. Every hour, the activity and the rumination. So a microphone on the inside of her neck is actually listening to the rumen churning. Every milking, we're picking the milk yield, the milk fat, protein, and lactose content, the milk speed, how fast she's dropping her milk temperature, also a indirect measure of her body temperature, somatic cell count, the number of visits to the robot, the time she's spending in the box. And then every milking, every quarter, we're measuring the yield contribution of that quarter to her overall milk yield, the teat position, the pre-milk time, so the time the unit is attached before milk is flowing, milking time, conductivity, and color. And then, of course, all of these measured data points, plus her calendar attentions and health events. So things like when was her last breeding, how many days in lactation is she, and all of this data is put together and recorded in a database. Speaking about the robot capacity, go back, Gabriel. Sorry, I think my slides are a little backwards. The robot capacity screen.
This one?
No.
That's the only one.
You know what? Go ahead. I'll take it in your order then. I guess I'll go with feeding first. So in my grandpa's day, the normal feeding program was bales and pails. So you fed the cow some hay and you fed her some grain, and the farmer not only did the work but also made the decision on how much, what each cow needed to get. In my dad's day of farming, the standard was a 1-group TMR. So now we're feeding cows at the herd level instead of the individual level. It was considered to be more efficient. And it was based on the NRC tables of what the nutrient requirements are of the herd of cows. So we went away from individual feeding and we're feeding the group of cows collectively, one diet for all. Today, we're actually going back to some individual feeding. So we're feeding cows today based on a lookup table as in the robot. So the robot is feeding grain based on the cow's individual milk yield and her components. So measuring her fat, protein, and lactose, and adding that into the calculation for what the nutrient requirement is of the individual cow, and then feeding her. And then I bring up the concept of the future tech, what's coming around the corner. And I suspect that the next step is that the cows will be fed based on a calculated response to additional feed. So there's been some testing, and I've seen some of the early iterations of this, and it is having the system calculate, well, what if we give the cow 1 extra half kilo of grain, for example? What does she do with that energy? Does she put that into milk production, or does it make her lazy and she eats less of the forage and the lower cost, lower input feedstuffs? So if she's putting it into milk, that's fantastic. That cow is going to be turning more feed into more milk. If she's not, then perhaps the question is, well, is this cow so efficient that she can produce the same milk with less expensive inputs and reduce her grain consumption, and see if the response, if the milk holds in that case? So it's an exciting technology that's I suspect around the corner, but certainly still needing some development. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the feed tables as they currently exist on my farm and many others. So there's a table for basically a lookup table feeding the cow an individual allocation of robot pellet, a high energy pellet, an energy booster supplement, and perhaps even a palm oil byproduct to increase the butterfat output. Next slide. Talking about robot capacity now, robots have approximately 1,200 minutes per day, 20 hours of the day where they can be milking cows. The other 4 hours they're washing, and there's a little bit of downtime. And so if we think about the investment in the robot and getting the maximum out of that investment, it really is all about figuring out how efficient can we be with every minute of robot time. So it's a question of whether to milk the cow and then how to milk the cow. So how to milk the cow goes into robot settings, things like how long are we brushing the cow to stimulate the milk letdown, when are we attaching, and then even things like adjusting the vacuum or the pulsation based on the cow's response. Today, these are basically figured out on a herd level and set for the herd. I suspect, again, in the future, a computer system that's able to take in the information for the cow's response to slight changes in these settings will make the system more efficient. Next slide. So today it's how often to milk the cow. The algorithm is figuring out, if I milk the cow more often, does that produce more milk, or does she produce the same milk because she has a natural capacity to carry more milk around without having a negative impact on her overall daily production? What that does is it allows us to milk the right cow at the right time. So we're not milking cows earlier than they need to be milked, which frees up robot capacity and potentially eliminates some waste or some excess cleaning, water, energy use, all of these things that make us more sustainable. And then at the cow welfare level, there's even a function where the system will pick up on the fact that maybe this cow has had some unsuccessful milking, some failures, and measuring her teat position. So figuring out that this cow does need to be milked less often, and it's actually sending me an alert on my phone to say this cow needs an adjustment to her milk access. Going to reproduction, there's 3 main questions. The question is whether to breed the cow, when to breed the cow, and who to breed the cow with. So today we have excellent information to help us make the decisions on the first 2 questions, not so much on the third one. The third one is still a little bit of salesmanship from the AI companies. Going to where we've come from and where we're going. So in my grandpa's day, of course, it was the farmer sitting beside the fence, perhaps having a smoke break and watching the cows, and really doing visual heat detection or using a herd bull and selecting the sires based on probably appearance. In my dad's day, the most progressive farms were using ovsync protocols and AI in order to get their cows pregnant and to get the best progeny possible. Today, we're actually moving away from those ovsync protocols and going to individual cow heat detection based on her activity, and also factoring some of the other data points, things like rumination and drops in milk yield, and selecting bulls based on genomic evaluations. So being able to take a tissue sample from a bull calf at as soon as he's born, and deciding whether that animal is a value to the future genetic index of the national herd, and then raising them or not. And I suspect next gen will be actually AI assisted breeding advice. So not only whether to breed the cow and when to breed the cow, but even who to breed the cow with in order to achieve the outcomes that you want for the farm and for the industry. Next slide. So today, like I mentioned, on my phone, I get an alert and it's showing me that, hey, this cow is in heat. The green time is the best time to breed her. The middle slide showing her history of activity, showing that 3 weeks ago she was also in heat, and then the last slide giving me the information on whether to breed the cow. So what her days in milk are and what her production is, and whether today is the right day to breed her or whether I wait for the next cycle. Next slide. So like I mentioned, the sire selection for farm level profitability, and then adding in not just the information from the individual herd or the individual bull stud, but all of the information from the other systems collecting performance data on animals, and helping that to make a breeding decision is kind of a utopic future that I'm looking for. Next slide. Finally, talking about cow health. Cow health, of course, is important not just for my on-farm profitability, but also the social sustainability of reassuring consumers that we are taking good care of the cows. In my grandpa's day, folk remedies and even alcohol were used to treat cows when they had an infection or when they had some issues. In my dad's day, it was routine herd health visits, so getting a veterinarian to come to the farm on a very regular schedule to take a look at all of the animals and helping with treatment decisions. Today, we're talking more about working with the veterinarian to set up protocols. So if certain information is coming out of the system based on the sensors, what is then the treatment advice broadly for that criteria? And then looking towards the future, I suspect the system will be able to give advice to farmers to say, hey, this cow showing these symptoms, if you treat with this drug, she will have a good chance of cure. Or this cow, based on her performance and the expected response to treatment, her immune system will probably take care of it. Next slide. So this just briefly is a demonstration of the type of information that goes into a health report. The top cow on the list, she has a cell count indication, she has a color indication on her milk left front quarter, she's got a milk drop, and all of that information put together is giving the system a health index of 59% chance of being sick, telling me that I need to go and take a look at this cow. Today, I'm able to automatically route cows based on these health indexes. I'm able to detect detect lameness based on her visit activity. There's a measure of ketosis and acidosis attention, metabolic diseases for especially fresh cows based on their fat and protein ratios. Weight attentions that assist me with setting up the feed tables, and then things like selective dry cow therapy. So going away from herd level preventative antibiotic treatments at dry off to selecting only those cows that likely have need for that therapy, and treating other cows just with a teat sealant. Future state, I suspect, will be the system being able to automatically dose preventative treatments like glycol supplementation for fresh cows to prevent actual illness in the animals. And then treatment advice, giving me the information to say this cow, based on her health data, her sensor data, this is the best drug to treat her with, or no drug to treat her with. So we've come a long way. In the past, it was the farmer not only doing the work, but also doing all of the observing and all of the data collection. Today, the work is being done by the system, and a lot of the data collection is being done by the system. And the future state is maybe some of that treatment decision and intervention decision being shifted from the farmer's mind to a data-based algorithm based on all of the available data that's there. And the last slide I want to quickly touch on is asking the question, do we need an AI? And AI, of course, has a lot of promise. And where I see the first step in the dairy industry especially is a universal AI that's able to collect the information that's currently housed in all of these different silos, different organizations, different ways of storing data, and today it's very difficult for one system to talk to any of the other systems. Some do it better than others, but inevitably, you know, if DairyComp connects with the robot and then the robot company decides to do an update, suddenly that link is broken and needs to be reprogrammed, which for a human is a lot of work. For an AI might be a case of something it can learn very quickly. So that's my presentation, and thank you, and look forward to your questions.
Okay. Thank you again, Gabriel. Thank you, Stefan, for your presentation. Very interesting as well. I have a lot of questions here for you as well.